Hi SUP chicks and SUP blokes. Today we're going to do another road test. This time it is going to be on the GoPro Floatie. So it probably seems like a bit of a strange thing to do a road test on. It's either going to float or it's not. What I was mainly interested in finding out was whether it would also float with the attachments that we typically use on our GoPro while we're filming out on our stand-up paddleboards. So let's check it out. The GoPro Floaty Mount is pretty straightforward. You pop your camera in the front here. There's a hole underneath to put the mounting bracket if you're using that. I have attached a lanyard, which I got from one of the other mounts that we have, actually off the GoPro Hero 8. But a lanyard is a lanyard. As long as you're not worried about it going in the water, it should be fine. So today we will be testing the GoPro Floaty Mount in the spa because it is easily retrieved if any of the tests see that it fails. Sorry about the reflection. So first off, we'll test the floaty itself. Of course, I imagine it's going to float. No surprises there. And we throw it in and yeah, it floats. No problems there. So interestingly, it sticks out of the water, I would say probably about 4/5 of its height. So you can see that's quite buoyant there. Now we'll test the floaty mount with the camera in it. So this is a GoPro Hero 9. And as you can see, it floats. It does as it says on the box. It sits quite low in the water. The camera, I guess, is rather heavy, but at the end of the day, you just want it to be safe. Here we're testing it with the bitey mount. Now we've done a review of the bitey mount previously. There's a link up the top here. So this is a really good one to have the floaty for. If you're going to have a floaty, I would definitely have it if you have a bite mount. So as you can see, no problems there. The added weight of the bite mount does not impact the camera's ability to float with the floaty on. So I'd say that my most common mount that I use is the telescoping selfie stick. It comes with a tripod, but I've actually taken that off because I don't feel like it works best in water. It's not designed to go in the water as far as I know. So we throw it into the water and as you can see, it goes straight to the bottom. So I guess the good thing is that the bit with the floaty on is the bit that's closest to the surface. However, if you were to drop your camera into water with any sort of sediment, it would be quite difficult to recover without being able to see with any clarity into that water. So we drop it into the deeper part of the spa and once again it goes straight to the bottom. So it wasn't the depth of water that made the difference there, it was the fact that the handheld selfie stick is a bit too heavy. So I usually use the telescoping selfie stick with a grip tripod. Now this just adds even more weight to the camera in general, so I'm not really expecting a lot here, but for the sake of the experiment, let's throw it in the spa, see what happens. Now, I was really surprised to see that it's more buoyant with the tripod, the grip tripod on, than it was without. So one can only assume that all these little knobbly bits here that comprise the grip part are actually hollow and air-filled, adding to the buoyancy. So this actually gives me a lot more confidence to use the camera with this setup and not be so worried about anchoring it down. Typically I will use the lanyard to attach it to the elastic lacings on the front of the board. So now just for fun, let's just extend the telescoping part of the selfie stick and have a look and see if for any reason that changes whether or not the floaty will keep the camera buoyant. And we throw it in and yeah, of course there's no difference there. It's quite happily floating. So I think the heaviest part is right in the middle. So we've got two floating parts either end. So as I said, with the floaty, I do use a lanyard, secure it around my wrist. This was particularly good when we went snorkeling. So I just had the handheld selfie stick on and the floaty. It was actually when I was snorkeling that we discovered that maybe the selfie stick wasn't quite as buoyant as what we'd hoped. So quite happily, we had the lanyard there to attach it to our wrist, so it worked quite well. Previously, I've tried to put the Floatie on with the paddle mount and it just seems extra bulky. Now, it depends on exactly how you mount it to the paddle. If you have it right in the front here, it does seem that you can put it on without any problems. If you mount it to the side though, I think that's when we found that the Floatie made it too bulky. So we throw the entire paddle in the spa. Luckily our spa's big enough. Most paddles I think are probably buoyant. Double check that with yours because they're all different obviously. I would imagine most manufacturers make them so that they can float. Definitely a good mount to have. The only thing I would say with it is a bit awkward if you're changing mounts while you're paddling, but the fact that it will float if you happen to drop it while you're changing mounts is a really good factor. So I was really surprised to see the results of this. I thought that a lot of the attachments may be too heavy for the Floatie to keep up on the surface of the water. No surprise that it definitely floats with just the camera as is. One of the things I definitely recommend would be to put a lanyard onto the camera so that you can attach it to your wrist, tighten it up, so that if it was to fall while using, say, the bite mount or any of the other handheld mounts, that you would have a second line of safety there. I was quite surprised that with the grip tripod that we used, that it was actually able to float. Apart from that, we have had some trouble putting the Floaty mount on with the handlebar mount or the paddle mount. I think a big part of that is just really making sure you've got enough angle attachments to adapt the way that the camera is sitting on the paddle. So if you can get it that little bit further out from the paddle, it allows for that extra bulk that's here just when you've got the mount, the Floaty mount on. One of the things that we do find with having the Floatie on is using the polarizing lens is a bit more problematic. This angle around here, you'll probably cut a little bit of the Floatie away to get the polarizing lens on there. However, so far, I've got to say I haven't used it a lot, so I don't know that we're actually losing too much by having the polarizing lens not in use. Thanks for joining me as we road tested the GoPro Floaty Mount. While you're here, check out some of these other videos I think you'll really enjoy. See you next time.